In the chilling autumn of 1990, during the first Gulf War under President H.W. Bush, I found myself deployed to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, as a U.S. Marine. Amidst the tension and uncertainty of war, Saddam Hussein's Scud missiles sporadically pierced the sky, their aim poor, landing in the vast and desolate Arabian desert. This harsh and unforgiving land, known to the locals as the Empty Quarter, was where my mission lay. A terrain as unyielding and resilient as the Marines themselves, a fitting backdrop for the daunting task ahead. This was no ordinary desert. Spanning an area as large as the state of Texas, it was the largest continuous sand desert in the world, a place so barren and inhospitable that not even the hardiest of humans called it home. Yet it was my duty to venture into this desolate landscape. The mission was clear but daunting. Locate the Scuds, identify their payloads, and recover any remnants. The stakes were high, for these were no ordinary missiles. They carried payloads of lethal poisons, the kind Saddam had callously used against the Kurds. A single undetonated missile, carrying something as deadly as mustard gas, could potentially be repurposed into a devastating dirty bomb, the target being somewhere as populous as New York City. It was my responsibility to ensure that nightmare scenario never came to fruition. Our only clues to the Scud's location were vague radar and satellite data, pointing us to a general area within the Empty Quarter. My team and I embarked on a perilous journey into the desert, driving towards the last known human settlement before the landscape yielded entirely to the endless sea of sand. This settlement was a modest encampment of the Almara tribe, a people whose lifestyle had scarcely changed for thousands of years. They dwelled in sheepskin tents, their lives intertwined with their camels, yet paradoxically armed with modern AK-47s. As we approached, the tribesmen greeted us not with words, but with the cold barrels of their guns. Dressed in simple cloaks and white turbans, they looked as if they had stepped out of a story from ancient scripture. Their leader, the Sheikh, was an imposing figure, distinguished by his red and white Saudi headdress, a vividly dyed red beard, and a humble wooden cane. Despite the initial hostility, I extended greetings in Arabic, a language I had come to grasp through interaction with allied Arab soldiers and a few formal classes. To earn their trust, we presented them with gifts of rice, bread, and canned goods, luxuries in their nomadic world. We were soon invited into the Sheikh's tent, an oasis of hospitality amidst the harsh desert. Inside, we sat on embroidered cushions and sipped the potent Arabic coffee, which made even the strongest Italian espresso seem tame by comparison. The Sheikh confirmed our fears. The missile had indeed fallen nearby but had not detonated. His next words, however, sent a chill down my spine. He warned us that the missile's resting place was off-limits. Not deterred by physical barriers, I assured him of our capabilities to reach any location, be it by land or air. But his objection was not about the terrain. It was something far more ancient and unnerving. Leading me to a nearby well, where I noticed something unsettling about the local children. Their eyes seemed devoid of pupils. The Sheikh spoke of the lands beyond as forbidden, not because they belonged to another human tribe, but to the jinn. Peering into the well's abyss, I felt an inexplicable sense of dread. The Sheikh, tapping his cane rhythmically, explained that these were ancient lands, governed by beings created from smokeless fire, entities that predated mankind and existed in a realm beyond our understanding. His words echoed in my mind, intertwining with the desert's eerie silence, as we prepared to venture into a realm where myths and reality blurred indistinguishably. As I listened to the Sheikh's words, a sense of unease crept over me. He spoke of the two creations, humans and jinn, existing on the same earth but in separate dimensions. However, there were places, he said, where these dimensions intersected, and the Empty Quarter was one such place. His tone grew more somber as he explained that this desert was home to a particularly malevolent tribe of jinn, so wicked that they were forbidden by God to leave their sandy prison. The sheikh elaborated on a chilling detail. The only way these jinn could escape their confinement was by possessing a human body. His warning sounded like a tale spun to frighten children, but his eyes held a gravity that spoke of deeper truths. Despite his cautionary words, I was dismissive, focused solely on my mission. In a bid to gather more practical information, I discreetly handed a young tribesman a note worth about $130. His guidance led us straight to the scud, its 6-ton payload lying dormant in the sand, untouched and ominous. We executed our recovery operation flawlessly, transporting the payload back to Riyadh by the next evening. Soon after, I was reassigned to Kuwait, joining the Liberation Force against Saddam's scud assaults. Miraculously, none of his missiles found their mark. Our victory was swift, and I returned home, seemingly unscathed, or so I thought. Homecoming was a joyous occasion. My young son, Daniel, had grown so much in my absence, and the embrace of my wife, Angela, was a balm to my weary soul. I reveled in the simple pleasures of family life, from barbecuing steaks in the backyard to buying Daniel a trampoline, warning him playfully about eagles. We shared lemonade and stargazed, a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss. I taught Daniel a phrase in Arabic that night, Assalamu alaikum, explaining it meant, peace be upon you. Little did I know that my own peace was about to be shattered. The very next morning, and every morning since, I've been haunted by a terrifying vision in the liminal space between sleep and wakefulness. A monstrous figure shrouded in darkness looms over me, its body contorted to fit the space above my bed. Its face is eerily human-like, yet its eyes are void of pupils, reminiscent of those Bedouin boys. This creature, this jinn, whispers a sinister incantation in Arabic, foretelling my death with each dawn. It's a psychological torment, a daily reminder of my vulnerability. The jinn doesn't possess the power to kill me directly, but its presence infiltrates my mind and body, manifesting as an overwhelming fog that saps my strength and willpower. Driving becomes a battle against this induced lethargy, a struggle to stay awake and alive. Each day is a fight for survival, a test of my resolve against an unseen and malevolent force that followed me from the deserts of Arabia to the comfort of my American home. The irony of escaping the dangers of war only to be ensnared by an ancient, supernatural terror is not lost on me. As I navigate my daily life, the boundary between reality and the otherworldly grows increasingly blurred, leaving me to question the very nature of my existence and the unseen forces that shape it. For over 2.5 decades, I've been living under the shadow of a relentless entity, a jinn that followed me from the arid dunes of the empty quarter to the familiar streets of my hometown. Its presence has been a constant torment, a force driving me towards the brink of destruction. I've endured 3 harrowing car accidents, each time miraculously surviving, only to find myself back in the hospital bandaged and broken, but still breathing. The jinn's influence grew more insidious over time. Last month, as I was preparing dinner, it whispered a chilling suggestion into my ear, promising a fantastical treasure hidden within my own body. It promised a resurrection of my beloved Angela and Danielle if I could just reach it. The aftermath was gruesome. The paramedics found me unconscious, my wrist severely injured, an apparent victim of a veteran's despair. The therapists tried to heal my mind, funded by the taxpayers' dollars, but their efforts were in vain. The jinn remained, unaffected by their words. Desperate, I sought help from every corner of the spiritual world. Exorcists from diverse faiths, Islamic, Catholic, Jewish, even Zoroastrian, attempted to rid me of this curse. Their rituals were intense, fervent, but all ultimately futile. The creature that haunted me, this so-called jinn, was beyond their reach, beyond the realm of the divine and the damned. It forced me to question my beliefs, to ponder the existence of God and the devil. In these years of torment, One of my few solaces was an old Russian Mosin Nagant rifle from World War II, a relic that I kept securely in a gun cabinet. Firing it was therapeutic, a brief escape from the relentless pursuit of the jinn. But even this respite was soon to be corrupted. One afternoon, while cleaning the rifle, the jinn beckoned me to look skyward, to witness an imaginary scud missile hurtling towards my family. Panicked and deluded, I aimed and fired, only to be met with the most harrowing laughter, a sound like the discordant notes of a broken piano. The reality was devastating. My son Daniel lay motionless on the trampoline, a tragic victim of my delusion. The sky was clear, no scuds, no threats, just the piercing scream of Angela, my world crumbling around me. She couldn't bear the pain, and 12 days later, she was gone too, leaving me in a world of unending sorrow. Declared insane by the court, I spent the next 24 years confined in a psychiatric facility, a place where ending one's life or being killed was nearly impossible. The jinn, frustrated by this new development, could only watch as I endured my penance. But during this time a plan began to form in my mind, a desperate gambit to rid myself of this curse. I realized that the jinn was as trapped inside me as it had been in the desert. In possessing me, it had exchanged one prison for another. Its freedom was tied to my demise, and it was this knowledge that fueled my strategy. I would induce cardiac arrest, timing it perfectly to allow emergency services to revive me. This act, I hoped, would release the jinn from its corporeal jail, freeing us both. Inspired by a scene from a television show called House, I prepared to dial 911, setting the stage for my calculated brush with death. But as I made the call, the jinn appeared again, its grotesque form twisted in amusement. Its laughter echoed in my ears, reminding me of the day it tricked me into killing Daniel. Doubt crept in, fear that this might be another of its deceptions, a fatal trick. I leave this note as a testament, a record of my struggle and my plan. Perhaps, in those fleeting moments between life and death, I'll find solace, a reunion with Angela and Daniel. Maybe in that liminal space, I'll find the peace that has eluded me since I returned from the war. As I embark on this uncertain journey, I ask for luck and leave peace upon all who find my story. Here I go, into the unknown. As I prepared to enact my desperate plan, a sudden, chilling realization dawned on me. The jinn, in its twisted nature, might have been misleading me all along. What if this final act, this gambit to free myself, was precisely what it desired? The possibility of falling into another of its traps paralyzed me with fear. Yet I couldn't let the jinn continue its reign of terror over my life. Determined, I steadied my hand, my finger hovering over the call button, the line between bravery and madness blurred. But then, an unexpected visitor arrived at my door, disrupting my precarious moment of decision. A young woman, claiming to be a doctoral student in Middle Eastern folklore, sought me out after hearing rumors about my story. She believed that there might be a way to break the jinn's hold over me, one rooted in ancient texts and rituals long forgotten by modern civilization. Her words offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to confront the jinn on different terms, and I found myself reluctantly agreeing to her plan. Together, we delved into ancient manuscripts and obscure texts, uncovering rituals and incantations that spoke of binding and banishing jinn. Each discovery was a step closer to understanding the creature that haunted me. As we worked, I noticed changes in my surroundings, subtle at first, but increasingly sinister. Objects moved on their own, shadows flickered in the corners of my eyes, and the air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread. The jinn was aware of our actions and was growing agitated. One night, as we pored over a particularly ancient scroll, the house shook violently, as if caught in an earthquake. The lights flickered and the temperature dropped, our breaths turning to mist in the air. The student, terrified, wanted to flee, but I knew this was the jinn's attempt to scare us away from our goal. Steadying our nerves, we continued our research, the house settling back into an eerie calm. As the days passed, our efforts began to bear fruit. We discovered a ritual that required a personal sacrifice, a symbolic gesture of relinquishing something cherished to weaken the jinn's grip. For me, the choice was heartbreakingly clear. I had to part with the last physical reminders of Angela and Daniel, their belongings that I had clung to over the years. It was a painful process, but necessary. Each item relinquished felt like letting go of a part of my soul. The night of the ritual arrived. The student and I prepared the ceremonial space with the prescribed symbols and incense, the air thick with the scent of ancient spices. As I began the incantation, a whirlwind of emotions and memories flooded through me. The room seemed to warp and bend, the boundaries of reality wavering. Then, in a climactic moment, the jinn appeared, its form more terrifying than ever, a swirling mass of shadows and malice. It screamed in a language not of this world, the sound piercing my very being. But I continued the ritual, my voice steady despite the fear. The jinn, realizing its imminent banishment, became more desperate, its form flickering and writhing. I could feel its grip on my soul loosening, the weight that had pressed down on me for so long beginning to lift. As the final words of the incantation left my lips, a blinding light filled the room, and a deafening roar erupted around us. The jinn let out one final, ear-splitting scream before it vanished, the light dissipating and leaving behind an overwhelming silence. The sense of liberation was immediate and profound. For the first time in years, I felt a peace that I thought was lost forever. In the aftermath, the student and I sat in stunned silence, processing the reality that the jinn was gone. I was free, truly free, for the first time in almost 3 decades. The weight of guilt, fear, and sorrow that had been my constant companions began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and a possibility of a new beginning. As I looked towards the future, I realized that while the jinn was gone, the journey of healing was just beginning. The scars of the past would always be a part of me, but now I could start to rebuild, to find meaning and purpose beyond the shadow of the jinn. My story, once defined by horror and despair, could now be one of resilience and redemption. And as I stepped out into the world, free from the spectral chains that had bound me, I knew that whatever lay ahead, I was ready to face it with a newfound strength and a heart unburdened.